What if one of the heaviest burdens you carry in your life was never truly yours? Not your anxiety, not your sense of responsibility, not the quiet feeling that you must always be strong, but something you learned to carry very early. Something invisible, something born out of love. Many children grow up with a silent promise inside them, a promise they never consciously made, a promise that sounds like this: if you are suffering, I will suffer with you. If you are overwhelmed, I will help carry it. If life was hard for you, I will not have it easier. No child says these words out loud, and yet in the silent language of the family soul, this promise is made again and again. In the systemic perspective developed by Bert Hellinger, this phenomenon is known as entanglement. An entanglement happens when a child, out of deep love and loyalty, steps into a place that does not belong to them.
Instead of remaining simply a child, they begin to carry something for their parents. Sometimes it is sadness, sometimes guilt, sometimes responsibility, sometimes even the role of emotional protector. At first, it may look like maturity. People might even praise it. You were always so strong. You were so responsible. You grew up too fast. But behind this strength, there is often a child who quietly said, I will help you carry what hurts. And a child's love is powerful, so powerful that it can shape an entire life. This is why many adults feel a strange weight that they cannot explain. They may say, I always feel responsible for everyone. I can't relax unless everything is under control. I feel guilty when things go well for me. I feel like I must fix things. These feelings rarely start in adulthood. They usually begin in childhood, in a moment when the child sensed something fragile in their parents.
Perhaps a mother who was overwhelmed. Perhaps a father who carried silent pain. Perhaps conflict, loss, financial struggle, illness, or emotional absence. Children are incredibly sensitive to the emotional field of the family. Even when nothing is spoken, they feel everything. And when they feel that something is wrong, their instinct is not to protect themselves. Their instinct is to protect the bond. A child's deepest need is to belong, and belonging often leads to unconscious loyalty. In that loyalty, a child may adopt hidden inner sentences like, I will help you. I will be strong for you. I will take care of you. I will not be a burden. From the outside, this may look admirable, but systemically, something important has shifted. The natural order has been reversed. Because in healthy order, parents carry for children. Parents give. Children receive. Parents protect. Children grow. When this order becomes inverted, when children begin to carry emotional weight for their parents, the system becomes unbalanced. This does not happen because parents are bad. Most of the time, parents are simply overwhelmed by their own history. They may be carrying pain from their own parents. They may be carrying unresolved trauma, grief, or loss. And unconsciously, the child steps forward and says, I will help. In the eyes of a child, this is love. But in systemic truth, it is too heavy. Because children do not have the strength to carry adult destinies. And when they try, they pay a price later in life. The price may appear in different forms: chronic anxiety, difficulty forming relationships, feeling responsible for everyone's happiness, financial struggle, exhaustion, a constant feeling of pressure, or the inability to simply enjoy life. It is as if life always feels serious, heavy, important. As if relaxing would be irresponsible. This is the signature of a child who carried too much. And yet, there is something very important to understand. The child did nothing wrong. The movement came from love, deep love, pure love. But love alone is not enough to create balance. Love also needs order. This was one of the central insights of Bert Hellinger. He observed again and again that many human struggles are not caused by lack of love. They are caused by love in the wrong place. A child loving their parents so much that they sacrifice their own childhood. A child loving their parents so much that they try to rescue them. A child loving their parents so much that they stop living freely. From the perspective of the soul, the intention is beautiful, but the effect becomes painful, because the child begins to live a life that is partially directed by someone else's fate. And the strange thing is, most adults who carry these burdens do not even realize it. They simply believe, this is who I am. I'm the responsible one. I'm the strong one. I'm the one who holds everything together. But when we look systemically, we often see something deeper. We see a child who once looked at their parents and thought, you already have too much. Let me help. This moment may have happened silently, without witnesses, without words. But the soul remembers, and the promise remains active until it is seen. This is why awareness is the first step. When you begin to recognize that some of the weight you carry did not originate with you, something inside you starts to soften. Not because you blame your parents, but because you begin to see the movement clearly. And clarity changes everything. It allows a new question to emerge. A question many people have never asked themselves before. What am I carrying that was never mine? Sometimes the answer appears slowly, in memories, in emotional reactions, in patterns you begin to notice. Perhaps you realize you always felt responsible for your mother's happiness, or you felt you had to protect your father from disappointment, or you felt you had to succeed so the family would be proud, or you felt you could never show weakness because everyone depended on you. These realizations are not accusations. They are discoveries, and discovery opens the door to healing. Because what was taken out of love can also be gently returned with love. Not through rebellion, not through blame, but through a movement of respect. A movement that says, Dear Mom, dear Dad, you are the big ones. I am the child. This sentence may sound simple, but for many people, it touches something very deep. Because it restores a natural order that may have been lost long ago. And when order returns, something remarkable happens. The child inside you finally begins to rest. There is a moment in life when many adults begin to notice something strange about themselves. They realize that they are tired. Not the normal kind of tired that comes from working hard or sleeping too little. A deeper tiredness. The kind that lives in the body for years. They wake up already feeling responsible for everything. Responsible for keeping peace. Responsible for fixing problems. Responsible for making sure no one suffers too much. And yet, when they look around, They cannot clearly explain why this responsibility belongs to them. It simply feels natural, automatic. But when we look through the systemic lens introduced by Bert Hellinger, we often discover something surprising. This sense of responsibility did not begin in adulthood. It began in childhood.
Because children are not only observers of their families, they are participants in a deep emotional field. Even when adults believe they are hiding their struggles, children perceive much more than words reveal. They feel tension in the room. They feel sadness behind smiles. They feel fear behind silence. And when they feel these emotional currents, something inside them begins to move. A child does not ask, "Is this my responsibility?" A child asks a different question. How can I help? Sometimes that help appears in very subtle ways. A child becomes extremely well-behaved so they do not create more stress. Another child becomes the emotional comforter of a parent. Another tries to become successful very early in order to bring pride to the family. Another becomes the one who listens to the adult's problems. Each of these movements comes from the same place, love. But it is a love that slowly turns into burden. Because in trying to help their parents emotionally, the child unknowingly crosses an invisible line. They move from the position of child into the position of caretaker. And this is where entanglement begins. In systemic language, an entanglement occurs when someone takes on feelings, responsibilities, or destinies that belong to another member of the family system. Children do this more easily than anyone else, not because they are weak, but because they are deeply connected. For a child, belonging to the family is survival. So if carrying something helps preserve connection, the child carries it, without question, without resistance. But the soul always remembers where things belong. And when someone carries what is not theirs, tension eventually appears. You might notice it in your adult life as a constant pressure to manage everything. You may find yourself unable to relax while others are struggling.
You may feel guilty when things go well for you. You may feel responsible for your parents' emotional well-being, even now, many years later. This sense of responsibility often continues long after the original situation has changed. Parents may no longer need help. Circumstances may have improved. But the internal promise made by the child remains active. I will take care of this. And because it was created out of love, it can feel almost impossible to let go. Some people even fear that releasing the burden would mean abandoning their parents. But systemic wisdom shows something very different. Carrying what belongs to your parents does not help them, and it does not strengthen the family. Instead, it keeps everyone stuck in roles that do not allow life to flow naturally. Parents remain unconsciously small. Children remain unconsciously burdened. And the natural movement of life, from earlier generations to later ones, becomes blocked. In a healthy system, life flows like a river. Parents give, children receive. Then, as adults, those children pass life forward to their own children or to the world through their creativity and contributions. But when children start carrying the emotional weight of their parents, this flow becomes interrupted. Instead of receiving strength, the child becomes the source of strength. And although this may look noble, it often leads to exhaustion. Because no child can truly support the destiny of their parents. Each person must carry their own fate. This does not mean we abandon one another. It simply means we respect the boundaries of responsibility. When those boundaries are clear, love becomes lighter. But when those boundaries disappear, love becomes heavy. Many people sense this heaviness without understanding where it comes from. They feel trapped between two conflicting impulses. One impulse says, "Live your own life." The other says, "But what about them?" This inner conflict can create enormous tension. It can delay important decisions. It can make success feel uncomfortable. It can make happiness feel dangerous. Because somewhere deep inside, a hidden sentence may still be active. If I live fully, I might leave someone behind. And the child inside does not want to leave anyone behind. This is why awareness must be accompanied by compassion. When you begin to see the burden you carried, it is important not to judge yourself. You were a child responding to what you felt. You acted out of loyalty and love. Those movements deserve respect, but they also deserve completion. Because the goal of systemic healing is not to erase love. It is to restore order within love. When love finds its proper place, something very beautiful happens. The child inside you can finally step back into their rightful position, not as the one who holds everything together, but simply as the son or daughter. And when that shift happens, a new type of strength emerges. A strength that does not come from pressure. A strength that comes from alignment. Instead of standing in front of your parents emotionally, you stand behind them. You recognize that they came first. You recognize that their destinies belong to them. And something inside you relaxes. For many people, this realization is deeply emotional, because they suddenly see how long they have been trying to protect the people who gave them life. They see the years of effort, the silent sacrifices, the invisible promises. And when they see it clearly, something softens. Not because they regret loving their parents, but because they realize that love does not require self-sacrifice in this way. Love can exist with respect for boundaries. Love can exist with freedom. Love can exist without burden. This is one of the quiet revolutions that systemic work makes possible. It changes the way we understand responsibility. It shows us that being a good son or daughter does not mean carrying what belongs to our parents. It means honoring them while standing in our own place. And from that place, something new becomes possible. A life that is not driven by hidden obligations. A life that is guided by gratitude instead of pressure. And this movement begins with a simple inner recognition. I see now what I carried, and I begin to understand that it was never mine to hold. Once a person begins to see what they have been carrying, another realization slowly appears. A realization that can be both relieving and emotional. Most of the burdens children carry for their parents were never asked for. No mother sat down and said, "Please carry my sadness." No father intentionally said, "Please take responsibility for my struggles." These movements usually happen in silence. They happen through the invisible emotional field that exists inside every family. This is something that Bert Hellinger observed repeatedly during family constellation work. When representatives stand in for members of a family system, they often begin to feel emotions that do not belong to them personally. Sadness, fear, pressure, responsibility. These emotions appear without explanation, and yet they reveal something essential. The family system communicates beyond words. Children are especially sensitive to this field. They instinctively feel what is unresolved. They feel the grief that was never expressed. They feel the anger that was never allowed. They feel the disappointment that someone tried to hide. And because children love deeply, they try to compensate for what they feel. A child may look at their mother and sense exhaustion. Without understanding why, the child becomes extremely cooperative. They try not to cause trouble. They try to make life easier. Another child may feel that their father carries shame or failure. Without realizing it, the child begins to strive for success, not only for themselves, but for the father. Another child may feel tension between the parents and attempt to become the emotional bridge between them. In each case, the child is responding to something real in the family field, but they are responding in a way that costs them their own freedom. Because every time a child steps into a role that belongs to the parents, the natural order shifts. Instead of receiving life and support, the child begins to give. Instead of feeling protected, the child becomes protective. Instead of growing freely, the child grows carefully. Many adults who carried these roles describe a similar experience. They say they always felt older than their age. They say they felt responsible even when they were very young. They say they worried about things that children normally do not worry about. And although these qualities may look like maturity, they often come from an early adaptation. The child learned that their presence had an impact on the emotional balance of the family, so they adjusted themselves accordingly. This adjustment may become so natural that the person no longer questions it. They simply believe, "This is my personality. I am the responsible one. I am the strong one. I am the one who keeps everything stable." But systemic understanding invites a deeper question. Is this truly your personality? Or is it a role you stepped into long ago? Sometimes the answer becomes clear when people imagine what their life might have felt like if they had been free to simply be a child. If they had been free to play without worry. If they had been free to make mistakes without feeling that others depended on them. If they had been free to experience childhood without carrying adult concerns. For some people, this reflection raised sadness because they realize how early they stepped out of their natural place. But this sadness is not a problem. It is a doorway. It is the beginning of awareness. And awareness is the first movement toward restoring balance. Another important aspect of childhood entanglement is the way it influences adult relationships. When someone grows up carrying emotional weight for their parents, they often recreate similar dynamics later in life. They may feel drawn to partners who need rescuing. They may feel responsible for friends' emotional stability. They may struggle to set boundaries, not because they want to suffer, but because their inner system learned that love means carrying, love means helping, love means sacrificing. And although this pattern comes from generosity, it often creates imbalance in adult life. Because relationships work best when each person carries their own responsibility. When one person begins to carry too much for another, tension eventually appears. The helper becomes exhausted, the other person becomes dependent, and the relationship slowly loses its natural balance. This is why recognizing childhood entanglement can transform not only the relationship with parents, but also the relationship with everyone else. Because once you see the pattern, you begin to understand something very important. Your value does not depend on how much you carry. Your worth does not depend on how much you sacrifice, and love does not require you to abandon yourself. These realizations can feel both liberating and uncomfortable at first, because if you have spent your entire life carrying emotional weight, letting go can feel unfamiliar. You might even feel a strange sense of emptiness, as if something important is missing. But what is actually missing is not purpose, it is pressure. Your system is simply adjusting to a new position, a position where you are no longer responsible for what belongs to others. And this adjustment takes time, because the patterns of childhood often run deep. They shaped the way you perceive love. They shaped the way you perceive responsibility. They shaped the way you perceive yourself. But the moment you begin to see these patterns, something already begins to change. You are no longer acting unconsciously. You are observing, and observation creates space. Space between you and the role you once played. In that space, a new possibility emerges. The possibility of relating to your parents with respect, but without carrying their burdens. The possibility of loving them without trying to fix their destiny. The possibility of standing beside them in the family system, not in front of them. And this is one of the most important shifts in systemic healing. Because when the child inside you steps back into their rightful place, the parents can also return to theirs. And something in the family field relaxes. Not because the past changed, but because the order within the system begins to restore itself. And when order returns, the energy that was once used to carry burdens becomes available for something else. For creativity, for relationships, for building your own life, for moving forward. This is the quiet freedom that appears when an entanglement begins to loosen. You realize that love does not disappear when you stop carrying. Love becomes clearer, lighter, and more honest. Because now it is no longer based on sacrifice. It is based on respect for each person's place in the system. And from that respect, true strength can grow. There is a subtle moment that changes everything in a person's life. It is the moment when they stop asking, "Why do I feel this way?" and begin asking a different question. Who might this belong to? This question opens a completely new door, because many of the emotions people struggle with are not only personal experiences, they are also echoes of the family system. This does not mean that your feelings are imaginary. They are real, but sometimes they did not originate with you. This is one of the profound observations made by Bert Hellinger through decades of working with families. Again and again, he noticed that when a hidden dynamic was revealed inside a constellation, people suddenly felt relief. Not because their problems disappeared instantly, but because something finally made sense. For example, imagine a child who grows up with a mother who carries deep sadness from her own life story. Perhaps she experienced loss. Perhaps she felt unsupported. Perhaps she endured sacrifices that were never acknowledged. The child feels this sadness even if the mother never speaks about it. And without realizing it, the child may develop a silent inner movement. I will help you. This movement may express itself in many forms. The child may become extremely attentive to the mother's emotional state. They may constantly try to cheer her up. They may avoid expressing their own needs so the mother does not feel overwhelmed. They may even suppress their own joy if the mother seems unhappy. From the outside, this looks like sensitivity and love. But from the systemic perspective, the child has stepped into a place that is too heavy.
Because sadness that belongs to the mother cannot be healed by the child. Only the mother can carry her own destiny. When the child tries to carry it, both people become trapped. The mother remains unconsciously supported by the child's energy, and the child grows up feeling responsible for emotions that were never theirs. This pattern can continue for decades, even when the child becomes an adult, even when they move away, even when they build their own life. The emotional bond remains active. The adult child may still feel responsible for the parent's happiness. They may hesitate to make choices that could upset them. They may feel guilty when their own life becomes easier than their parents' lives were. These feelings can create invisible limits. Limits on success, limits on happiness, limits on freedom. Because somewhere inside, a silent loyalty still whispers, "I cannot have more than you." This loyalty is not conscious.
Most people would never say these words aloud, but the systemic field reveals that such loyalties exist. They are part of the deep structure of belonging. Children would rather limit themselves than risk feeling disloyal to their parents. This is why many people unknowingly hold themselves back at the exact moment when life begins to open for them. Opportunities appear. Growth becomes possible. And suddenly, something inside resists. Fear appears. Doubt appears. Self-sabotage appears. From a psychological perspective, this can look like insecurity. But from a systemic perspective, it often reflects loyalty. A loyalty that says, if I move too far ahead, I might leave someone behind. This inner movement is especially strong when a parent experienced significant hardship. Children may feel that living a joyful or abundant life would somehow betray the struggles of their parents.
So they unconsciously stay close to the same level of difficulty, not because they lack ability, but because loyalty pulls them back. This is why awareness is so powerful. When you begin to see this dynamic clearly, you can respond differently. Instead of carrying the burden unconsciously, you can acknowledge it with respect. You might say internally, "Dear Mom, dear Dad, I see your struggles." This sentence alone can create a shift, because recognition brings dignity. Parents do not need their children to suffer with them. What they truly need is to have their experience seen. When their experience is acknowledged, something begins to relax in the system. And from there, a new sentence becomes possible. A sentence that restores order. A sentence that many people find deeply moving when they first encounter it. It sounds like this: "You are the big ones. I am the small one." This sentence is not about superiority or inferiority. It is about sequence. Parents came first. Children came later. Life flowed from them to you. When this order is respected, the system becomes stable, and stability allows energy to flow forward. Instead of using your energy to carry what belongs to the past, you can begin to use it to build your own life. Your creativity awakens. Your decisions become clearer. Your relationships become more balanced. Because you are no longer standing in a place that does not belong to you. You are standing where life intended you to stand, behind your parents, supported by them. Even if their lives were difficult, even if they made mistakes, they are still the source of your life. And acknowledging this source does not diminish you. It strengthens you. Because when you accept your parents as they are,
You stop fighting reality. And when the fight stops, a new kind of peace becomes possible. Many people describe this peace as a feeling of relief, as if a tension they carried for years finally begins to loosen. The body relaxes. Breathing becomes deeper. The mind becomes quieter. And for the first time, they begin to sense something that may have been missing for a long time. Permission. Permission to live their own life. Permission to succeed. Permission to be happy. Permission to move forward without carrying the weight of the past. This permission does not come from rebellion. It comes from respect. Respect for the parent's destiny. Respect for the child's place. Respect for the natural order of life. And when respect returns, love begins to flow in a new way. A way that is no longer heavy. A way that supports life instead of limiting it. This is the quiet transformation that begins when childhood entanglement is finally seen for what it is.
Not a mistake, not a failure, but a movement of love that simply needs to find its rightful place. When a person begins to understand that they carried something for their parents, an important inner movement becomes possible. But this movement is often misunderstood. Many people believe that healing means confronting their parents, explaining everything that went wrong, or demanding recognition for the burden they carried. Systemic wisdom points in a very different direction. True resolution rarely comes through confrontation. It comes through clarity of place. Because the entanglement did not begin through conscious decisions, it began through unconscious love. And unconscious love cannot be corrected through arguments. It is corrected through a new inner posture. A posture that restores the natural order between parents and children. In the work developed by Bert Hellinger, this shift often happens through very simple inner sentences.
Sentences that do not try to change the past. Sentences that do not accuse anyone. Sentences that simply recognize reality. One of these sentences can sound like this. Dear Mom, dear Dad, you are the big ones. I am the child. For some people, saying this internally may seem almost too simple. But its effect can be profound. Because many entanglements continue precisely because this natural order was never fully recognized. When a child feels responsible for the emotional well-being of their parents, the positions become blurred. The child stands emotionally beside or even in front of the parents. They become the stabilizer, the protector, the one who carries. And as long as this position remains active, the burden cannot truly disappear. It only changes form. Sometimes it becomes chronic stress. Sometimes it becomes difficulty trusting others. Sometimes it becomes a life pattern where the person is always the one who gives more. But when the inner order shifts, something remarkable begins to happen. The child no longer needs to hold the system together. The parents can return to their rightful place as the ones who came before. And the adult child can step into their own life with greater freedom. This shift does not require the parents to change. That is another important aspect of systemic understanding. Healing inside the family system does not depend on convincing others. It depends on changing your own position within the inner image of the family. Once this image changes, the emotional field begins to reorganize itself. The pressure that once pushed you to carry everything slowly begins to release. At first, this can feel unfamiliar. Some people even experience a strange sense of emptiness. For years, their identity was connected to being the responsible one,
The strong one, the one who takes care of everyone. When that role begins to dissolve, the question naturally appears. If I am no longer carrying this, who am I? This question is not a problem. It is the beginning of rediscovering your own life. Because when the energy that was used to carry burdens becomes available again, something new can grow. Creativity, curiosity, joy, desire. Many people notice that once they stop carrying emotional weight for others, their body also changes. The shoulders relax. The breathing becomes deeper. Sleep improves. The constant sense of vigilance slowly fades. This happens because the nervous system is no longer operating under the pressure of invisible responsibility. The body finally receives the message that it does not need to hold everything together anymore. This transformation also affects relationships. When you no longer approach others from a position of carrying them, the dynamics change. You begin to meet people as equals. You no longer feel responsible for fixing everyone's problems. You no longer feel obligated to rescue others from their pain. And this creates healthier connections. Because real intimacy can only exist when each person stands in their own place. When one person constantly carries the other, the relationship loses balance. But when both people respect each other's responsibility, love becomes freer. Another important aspect of releasing childhood entanglement is learning to trust that each person's destiny belongs to them. This idea can be difficult at first, especially for those who grew up feeling responsible for protecting their parents. But systemic understanding reminds us of something fundamental. Every human being has their own path, their own lessons, their own fate.
Children cannot live the destiny of their parents, and parents cannot live the destiny of their children. When we attempt to carry someone else's destiny, we unknowingly interfere with the natural movement of life. This does not help them, and it does not help us. But when we respect that each person carries their own story, something becomes lighter. We stop interfering. We stop trying to control outcomes. We stop believing that someone else's well-being depends entirely on us. And in that space, love becomes calmer, more mature, more respectful. It no longer needs to prove itself through sacrifice. It simply recognizes the bond that exists. This recognition can also awaken a deep sense of gratitude. Because when you step out of the role of carrying your parents, you can begin to see them more clearly, not only through the lens of responsibility, but as human beings who also faced their own struggles, their own fears,
Their own limitations. You may begin to see how much they carried from previous generations. You may realize that some of their difficulties were never truly theirs either. They were also part of a longer chain of entanglements. Seeing this does not erase the past, but it brings understanding. And understanding softens the heart. Instead of feeling trapped by family history, you begin to feel connected to it in a healthier way. You recognize where you come from, but you no longer feel obligated to repeat what happened before. This is one of the greatest gifts of systemic awareness. It allows you to honor the past without being imprisoned by it. And as this understanding deepens,
a quiet confidence begins to grow. A confidence that says, I can love my family without carrying what does not belong to me. From this place, something new becomes possible. A life guided not by invisible burdens, but by conscious presence. A life where love supports movement instead of restricting it, and where the child who once carried too much can finally step forward into their own path, lighter, calmer, and free to live. There is a quiet moment that many people experience after they begin to release what they carried for their parents. It is not dramatic. It does not arrive with loud realizations or sudden declarations. Instead, it feels subtle, almost like a gentle shift inside the body. The pressure that once felt constant begins to soften. The need to monitor everyone's emotions begins to fade. And something that may have been unfamiliar for a long time slowly returns. A sense of inner space. For many people, this space feels strange at first. Because when you grow up carrying emotional responsibility, your attention is always directed outward. You are scanning the environment, watching others carefully, trying to anticipate problems before they appear, trying to keep balance inside the family. But when that invisible responsibility begins to dissolve, the attention slowly turns inward. You begin to notice your own needs, your own desires, your own rhythm. And this is often the moment when people realize something important. They realize that they had been living their lives partially for others. Not in an obvious way, not through conscious sacrifice, but through small daily adjustments that slowly shaped the direction of their lives. Decisions were influenced by the desire not to disturb the family balance. Dreams were postponed because someone else needed stability. Opportunities were declined because moving forward felt disloyal. All of this happened quietly, without anyone asking for it, and yet it shaped the course of life. When this pattern becomes visible, a new possibility opens. The possibility of choosing differently, not out of rebellion, not out of anger, but out of alignment with life itself. In systemic understanding, life always moves forward. Parents give life. Children receive it. Then those children grow and pass life forward through their own path. This movement is natural. But when children carry emotional burdens for their parents, this flow becomes blocked. Instead of moving forward, the energy remains tied to the past. Instead of building something new, the person remains connected to unfinished stories. But when the burden is returned to its rightful place, the movement of life continues. The past is still honored, but it no longer defines the limits of the future. This is why releasing childhood entanglement does not weaken the bond with your parents. It actually strengthens it, because the relationship becomes based on truth rather than hidden responsibility. You can look at your parents and say internally, "You are my parents. You gave me life, and I accept it." These words carry deep meaning. Accepting life exactly as it was given, including the difficulties, is one of the central insights emphasized by Bert Hellinger. Not because the past was perfect, but because rejecting life as it came often creates even more tension inside the system. When a person rejects aspects of their parents or their family history, part of their own roots becomes divided. And when roots are divided, strength becomes limited. But when life is accepted fully, something powerful happens. The person becomes grounded. They no longer need to fight the past. They can stand firmly in the present. This acceptance also allows a new kind of gratitude to appear, a gratitude that does not ignore difficulties, a gratitude that simply recognizes the fact that life was transmitted through many generations until it reached you. Behind you stand your parents. Behind them stand your grandparents.
Behind them stand countless other ancestors whose stories are mostly unknown. Each generation carried its own struggles and hopes. Each generation contributed something to the continuation of life. And through that long chain of events, life eventually reached you. When you recognize this, a new perspective appears. You are not only someone who carries family history, you are also someone through whom life continues. Your choices, your actions, your awareness, all of these influence the direction in which life will move next. This realization brings both responsibility and freedom. Responsibility because your life now becomes part of the story that future generations will inherit. Freedom because you are no longer obligated to repeat what came before. You can honor the past while creating something new. You can respect your parents without carrying their burdens. You can love your family without sacrificing your own path.
This balance is the essence of systemic healing. Not separation, not rejection, but alignment. When you stand in your rightful place as a child who received life, the entire system benefits. Your parents are respected, your own life gains strength, and future generations receive a clearer path forward. The entanglement that once passed silently from one generation to the next begins to loosen. Not through force, but through awareness, through respect, through the quiet courage of seeing what was hidden and choosing not to continue carrying what does not belong to you. This is how cycles change, not through blame, but through understanding. And from that understanding, a deeper peace becomes possible. A peace that comes from knowing that you can love your family exactly as they are, while still living fully as yourself. If this reflection resonates with you, take a moment to acknowledge the movement happening inside.
And if you feel comfortable, write in the comments, "I honor my parents, and I allow myself to live my own life." Sometimes naming this intention is the first step toward restoring balance in the family system. And if these insights about family constellations speak to you, remember to like this video and subscribe to the channel. This helps these teachings reach more people who may also be carrying invisible burdens and who are ready to finally set them down.